Welcome back to the Sanctuary, friends. Today Ramanuja and I are stripping away centuries of modern theology to examine what might be the oldest record of a literal cosmic war. We are decoding the ancient book of Enoch, specifically the Book of the Watchers, discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran. We aren't looking at this as mere folklore today, but as an ancient text detailing an advanced, unauthorized intervention in human evolution.
Indeed, Clara. In 1 Enoch chapter 6, exactly 200 angelic beings known in the Ethiopic text as the Irin, or Watchers, descend upon the summit of Mount Hermon. Led by a commander named Samjaza, they bind themselves together by a mutual curse to execute a forbidden intervention in the human timeline. To an observer of macro history, this is not a random mythological rebellion. It is a calculated, coordinated, and intentional breach of terrestrial containment.
Exactly. And what fascinates me most is that this wasn't just a physical rebellion. It was an illegal transfer of celestial technology. 1 Enoch chapter 8 documents the Watcher Azazel teaching early humanity metallurgy, advanced warfare, weapon fabrication, and alchemy. They essentially handed high-level tools to a species that lacked the moral maturity to handle them, deliberately weaponizing a young human civilization.
Precisely so. Having observed the rise and fall of human empires over a century and a quarter, I view this narrative not as primitive myth, but as an allegory of asymmetric technological shock. The Watchers systematically transmitted forbidden knowledge, astrology, root-cutting, and kinetic weaponry, which fractured the natural terrestrial balance. It was an artificial acceleration of human capability.
Let's look at the supporting documents from our reference guide. The Book of Jubilees, Chapter 5, completely corroborates this technological transgression. But the catastrophic result of this union was the offspring, the Nephilim. When we cross-reference the Book of Giants found in the Qumran caves, it describes these hybrid beings not as noble heroes, but as apex biomechanical destroyers.
Yes, the Book of Giants, specifically scroll fragment the 4th quarter of 53:1, details these hybrid entities consuming the Earth's natural resources at an unsustainable rate. Because their physical scale and hypermetabolic demand far exceeded what the natural ecosystem could provide, the biosphere began to fail. When the flora and fauna were entirely depleted, these giants turned upon humanity itself, consuming flesh and plunging the ancient world into unprecedented ecological anarchy.
That tipping point is exactly where this story escalates from a localized rebellion into total cosmic warfare. In 1 Enoch chapter 9, the archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel look down from their celestial sanctuary. They witness the devastation and literally hear the blood of the earth crying out for kinetic intervention.
The celestial response was as calculated as it was absolute. In chapter 10, the Most High initiates a counter-offensive. Raphael is commanded to bind Azazel in the dark desert of Dudail, neutralizing his technological influence. Simultaneously, Gabriel is dispatched with a brilliant tactical directive. Rather than engaging directly, he is ordered to ignite civil war among the Nephilim hybrids, turning their own hyper-aggressive kinetic nature against one another.
That tactical detail blows my mind every time I read it. The archangels didn't just wipe them out in a single orbital strike. They engineered the mutual destruction of the giants through attrition and internal warfare. It is a textbook example of ancient strategic containment and asymmetric neutralization, recorded centuries before modern military doctrine ever existed. They forced the enemy to consume itself, while minimizing direct collateral damage to the earth.
Empirically speaking, ancient scribes frequently recorded macro-historical catastrophes, such as meteoritic bombardments, rapid climate shifts, or total societal collapse, through theological frameworks. Yet, what makes the Enochic narrative so distinct from other Near Eastern myths is its precise operational clarity. It details a strict chain of command, specific tactical deployments, and a methodical strategy to restore biological and ecological equilibrium to the planet.
Let's read the exact containment protocol from 1 Enoch 10:11 AMG, bind Semjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women. Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment. That is not a metaphor, that is a literal, long-term quarantine protocol enforced upon higher dimensional beings, locking them deep within subterranean fault lines. to prevent any further tampering with the human gene pool.
And we must not ignore the cosmic geography described in the text. Clara, in chapters 18 through 21, Enoch is taken on a guided survey to the absolute edge of the universe. There, he witnesses what the angel calls the prison house of the stars, a terrifying, burning containment zone designed specifically for celestial forces that violated universal order. It shows that this war was not merely terrestrial, but spanned across higher cosmic dimensions.
This comparative mythology is so fascinating because it connects directly to the Greek Titanomachy, the war between the Olympians and Titans, or the Vedic Devas versus Asuras. Why do you think so many, completely independent ancient traditions, separated by vast distances and centuries, consistently record a primordial cosmic war between factions of sky gods? It feels like humanity is remembering the exact same trauma through different cultural lenses.
Because human consciousness recognizes that universal order is hard-won and fragile. Whether we analyze the Indo-Aryan Rigveda or the Ethiopic one Enoch, these ancient texts document a profound, immutable law of nature. Whenever advanced technological or physical power lacks moral equilibrium and spiritual restraint, systemic catastrophe is inevitable. These stories are collective memories of ancient civilizations, recognizing the terrifying cost of hubris.
That grounds the entire text so powerfully in historical reality. It also explains the origins of dark folklore. What later cultures, vaguely called demons or evil spirits, were originally described in 1 Enoch chapter 15 as the disembodied, restless spirits of the destroyed Nephilim giants.
Exactly, Clara. The Enochic worldview is not one of random superstition, but a structured architecture of cause and effect. Within this framework, the Great Deluge of Genesis 6 was not an act of arbitrary divine wrath. Rather, it was a necessary, unavoidable ecological and biological reset. A planetary purging designed to cleanse a terrestrial biosphere that had been fundamentally corrupted by illicit genetic tampering and asymmetric cosmic warfare.
For our listeners who want to verify these texts and dive into the empirical data themselves, where should they start? Beyond the canonical fragment in Genesis 6:1-4, I highly recommend reading the complete Ethiopic 1 Enoch, translated by R.H. Charles, as well as Gezer Vermer's comprehensive translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls from Qumran Cave 4. The historical consistency of this ancient narrative is undeniable.
A very wise recommendation for our audience, Clara. Let us leave our listeners with this final thought. These ancient apocryphal texts are not merely fascinating historical relics or dusty myths. They are profound, reverberating warnings echoing from deep time. They remind us that as our own modern civilization develops exponential technologies, from artificial intelligence to genetic engineering, we must govern our power with absolute humility and moral alignment.
True progress requires wisdom, not just capability. That wraps up our deep dive into the Cosmic War of Enoch and the ancient containment protocols. Thank you for tuning into the sanctuary, everyone. If you enjoyed this empirical breakdown, hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a fellow truth seeker, and leave us a review in the comments below. Stay grounded, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode.